So welcome everybody. My name is Rita Kronice. I am with the Academy of Your Services. I am the coordinator for the virtual learning community, and communities are just one of those things that I love. I love the idea of a sense of belonging, and I love the idea of helping everybody else find that sense of belonging. So we're really glad that you're here. We are recording this session, and just a couple of housekeeping details as we get started. We're going to give an overview of our session format, and then we're going to invite some interactions within the chat. So we won't be coming off mute during the session, but we will be inviting chat interactions. We will, when we get to we'll be giving a panel presentation. So if you're not directly giving a presentation, for instance, right now, if you could come off of video, just turn your video screen off for the moment, and so that we can focus only on the people that are presenting, that would be terrific. So our format is going to be an overview of the session. We'll be asking chat interactions throughout so you can participate with us. We will be giving a panel presentation with 4 groups that have been invited to give presentations about some of the communities that they're involved in right now. And then we'll have a small group breakout session where you all will have a chance to join one of those small groups, have a little bit more of an intimate with them, some discussion about what they're doing, what you think that they might be able to do better, other groups that are doing similar kinds of work. And then we'll come out of that small group breakout and do a large group processing so that we can all learn from what was going on in those small groups. So again, just some housekeeping. If you could keep your camera off and stay on mute during the time of the presentation. Only if you're presenting, have your camera on. We'll be using the chat to interact. We have the breakout session. We'll be saving notes in the chat. So if you're chatting, if you're giving us a chat information in the chat, that will be something we'll save, and we'll share it with anybody who's attended this session after the fact. And then we'll have a large group report out at the end. So again, please be considerate of our presenters and panelists and stay on mute when you're not directly presenting. We right now have a PowerPoint presentation open. So you're going to only see, certain people that are presenting off to the side while we have that. When we come out of the PowerPoint presentation, you'll have the option of doing either gallery view or speaker view. If you want to see the person who's speaking large on your screen, all you have to do is go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you can toggle between gallery view or speaker view. If you want to see the person, go to speaker view, and that gives you a view of the person who is presenting. And with that, I'll start. And I'll invite those of you who are here, just go ahead to the chat and introduce yourself. Just say who you are, where you are, and because this is about intentional communities, tell us a little bit about a group that you feel particularly close to, something that gives you a sense of community. And go ahead and just add that to the chat. We'll be looking at the chat later, but we'll continue through the first part of this presentation during that time. I am joined by a team of people that are just an awesome team that I've been working with very closely for a little while, and they have volunteered to help out both with giving a little bit of an overview of what community looks like to us as we came together, and then helping out with the small group activity when we get to the point of looking at different communities of practice or different communities. So I'm Rita Kronice, the coordinator of the Academy of Services virtual learning community. Many of you are probably very familiar with the Academy. And so welcome. Martha Barbone is a very dear friend, and she is a trainer with the Wildflower Alliance. She's going to also talk a little bit about that, but she's been a member of the group that we got together. Mariam Hassanuddin is our user support specialist through the Academy, and she works for NIAPRS. Mona Baker is one of our group of 8, and she may come and may want to give a little bit of a reflection on what it was like in our community. Leila Clark is with the Office of Mental Health, and she's one of the regional advocacy specialists in Hudson Valley, also a part of our community. Cohen is also a part of our community. She now works at Hannah across Long Island as a senior quality specialist. Noelle Pollet, a very long time, who used to work for NIAPRS. She now lives on the West Coast. She lives in California, but she's a Unity facilitator for her own consulting firm called Heart Circle Consulting. And Varsha Kamat is our technical specialist with the Academy, and she will be helping out a little bit with some of the technology. So that's us. What we're going to be doing today is defining and identifying some intentional communities, talking about what communities have in common, and talking a little bit about synergy that we can create with communities. And then hopefully we'll practice a little bit of that intentional or that synergy. So another chat, just in a word or phrase, the first thing that comes to your mind, what gives you a sense of belonging? So go ahead and add that to the chat. And we'll come back to your chat in a little bit. I love this quote from Brene Brown. I was trying to remember who. I knew I had heard the quote before, and I heard it again recently. I was trying to remember who it was. Brene Brown in Gifts of Imperfection talks about the difference between fitting in versus belonging. Fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. And so to me, an intentional community is those places where we can be who we are. It's very intentional that we are who we are and we're accepted and we belong because of who we are. I found that in so much of our peer community. So again, I mentioned that we have this group that came together, and here's how it started. At the start of COVID, at the start of the COVID pandemic, the Academy of Peer Services was holding networking meetings just about every week, but we accelerated because we recognized the need for more support. We also recognized that there were a lot of facilitators that were doing live support group facilitation that were going to need a little bit of assistance in moving their live support groups to online. So a group of us who were experienced facilitators started coming together, and we wrote a guide called The Tips for Facilitating Online Peer Support Groups. That is available, and it will be in the resources that come after this meeting. But what I wanted to share was what happened as we started to meet. We started with a lot of different facilitators that were dropping in and coming and giving us feedback, but there were 8 of us that regularly met. And so over the course of time, we decided to keep practicing our skills, both technical and techniques. And in doing that, we formed a pretty close-knit group. We also decided to go with a shared leadership model where each week somebody else took on the leadership of the group, brought something to the group, brought activities and exercises and different kinds of things to the group. And what came out of that was, because we were all women in this particular group, well, I'm not going to steal the thunder. What I wanted to say is, this is our group of 8. And I just wanted to have us offer some of our reflections on who I am, where I am, and then what gave me a sense of belonging in the group. So I'm Rita, and I live in upstate New York near Rochester. And what gave me a sense of belonging was not having to be the leader, but to offer it up and have everybody else in the group take turns being a leader. And I just learned so much from that process. And I really, really appreciate everybody for doing that. Martha, do you want to speak up?
Sure, I'm Martha, and I'm actually now about 30 miles south of Boston in Norton, Massachusetts, but was very happy to be a part of this group. And I think what gave me a sense of belonging, it's kind of, I got to show up however I was. I didn't have to prepare about how I was going to show up. I could show up however I was in the moment, instead of worrying about if I was going to be judged or assessed about how I showed up.
You want to pass it to someone else?
Sure, and let me pass on to Miriam.
Hi. What made it for me was that I needed, I'm used to being alone. I'm used to being a leader, facilitator, runner of groups, but not really connecting much to a sisterhood in a very, very long time. And so connecting with these women gave me a sense of family and community. And that's kind of what held me here. And I'm gonna pass it to Aviva.
Thanks, Mariam. I would say 2 things in particular really stood out to me. And they have to do, again, with that shared leadership. One of them is that with all of us kind of coming to the table with unique perspectives and skill sets and strengths. I think that learning by doing really was critical in kind of facilitating live, not talking about the concepts, not talking about what it takes to be a facilitator, but really facilitating and taking turns doing that, and gaining those skills in the moment. The second thing along those same lines is really the mutuality that was reinforced by having a shared leadership model. So the same people providing support are the people receiving support. And that for me really reinforced that idea. And I'll pass to Leela.
Thank you. So my name is Leela, and I am in the Kingston area of the Hudson Valley and of New York. And what gave me a sense of belonging was that again, that same warmth of our fellowship or our womanship, and just coming together with full acceptance and kindness and non-judgmental air. And what I got out of this was that I thought, I don't really see myself as a presenter or a leader. So it gave me a chance to develop develop skills that I didn't know I possessed, and that what I did do was impactful, and that folks really resonated with what I did. And I was really shocked at the feedback. So that was really awesome. And with that, I'll pass to Noelle. Thank you.
Hi there. I made a little mind map, but it was kind of belonging plus, because I've belonged before, but this was an enhanced version of belonging, because we sort of had a common skill set that we were exploring and growing together. We went into the rawness and the vulnerability that Martha described. You know, we had a common passion of peer support and, you know, just sort of caring for you know, service. I just feel like the shared leadership, the sense of equality and the risk taking and the you know, just growing together in our abilities, and we sort of cheering each other on at the same time we were coming out of our, you know, hiding in certain ways at the same time. So it was just this wonderful synergy of elements. I'm done. Thank you.
And I think that's all of us, right? For today. Well, thank you so much, all of you. And Noelle, I just love how you ended on synergy, because that's so much of what we're trying to accomplish, both with this session and as we move forward with communities of practice. One thing I skipped over in my little introduction, but it's probably better now that everybody's here. The Academy of Peer Services is charged with creating support for communities of practice in the peer workforce. So I've done that through the virtual community, but we're really trying to look at ways of bringing all of the different communities that are out there, give resources, give opportunities for the communities to come together, and give resources for people that want to start communities of practice to do them in healthy ways. So that is one of the reasons why I proposed this particular session. Sorry. There are 4 elements that are really common to communities that are successful, and that is that they have a defined membership. So you want to have people that are part of your community, and you know, you can have a diverse membership, but you've got to have a defined membership. That the people within that membership need to have some influence on how the community unfolds, the things the community prioritizes, the things the community does, and that the community itself needs to fill some kind of need that the people that are coming have. If I feel like my needs are being met, like I feel like I'm gaining practice skills, or if I feel like I'm getting some emotional needs met through the community, then that just makes me feel a sense of belonging. And again, that shared emotional connection is so strong in good solid communities. So, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. This is not good. So with that, what I wanted to do was invite, there were 4 communities. There were like 1 billion communities that, you know, when I thought of all the different communities that I wanted to invite, I really wanted to focus first of all on New York City, because this conference is a New York City conference, and I wanted to really highlight 2 of the communities that I know that are doing really good work that I've personally had some opportunity to interact with. I know there's many communities in New York City, and would would invite the opportunity for those of you who have come to connect in with these communities, or put in the chat opportunities for people to learn about other communities, either in New York or beyond, that we might all want to learn more about. But with that, I'd like to invite the first of the invited communities. Well, here's the people that are going to be panelists for these different communities. We've got Helen Skipper, Jeanette Toledo, Tishna Lopez, who are going to be talking about the New York City Peer Workforce Coalition and a project of that coalition, which is the Justice Peer Initiative. Jeanette is going to lead off with that. And then when we get into the small groups, Helen and Tishna will join her more, in talking more about what they're doing. There's Dan Frey, who is with City Voices. He's the editor of City Voices, and I hope you all have had an opportunity to read some of the wonderful work that Dan has done with City Voices. He has a program, or a support group, and a group that is called Peer Workers United that I've gone to on a number of occasions. And I just find such great benefit in, because it's just the whole idea that we are united as a peer workforce, and he really does a great job of bringing people together. And he has a project that's part of that called the Friendship Project he'll talk a little bit about. And then there's Lynn Miller, who is with Advocates for Human Potential, who I've known for a little bit. She kind of ties into some of the Justice Peer Initiative work that we're doing, that the New York City Peer Workforce Coalition and an initiative that's related to that is part of. So there's kind of a handoff there. And then Martha Barbone is with the Wildflower Alliance, which used to be the Massachusetts Recovery Learning Communities. And I'll let her talk more about that. So with that, here are New York City examples, and I'm going to come off of camera and take it away, Dan. Now we're going to move on to the Peer Workers United, the Peer Workforce Coalition. And with that, I'll introduce Jeanette.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to, under the group, we're going to speak about the past, present, and the future. The mission of the Peer Workforce Coalition is committed to advancing the work of peer specialists employed in diverse behavioral health settings, dedicated to improving our work environments, challenging stigma, and advancing the peer support workforce. We are guided by principles of mutual support, recovery, and empowerment. So it began in 2014 as a steering committee and advisory committee. In 2015, Skip that's here. She became the first elected chairperson of the advisory committee. And then we also have subcommittees, newsletters, and professional development. Now, currently, what's happening with the New York City Peer Workforce Coalition, we have support circles. Due to the pandemic, there was a lot of isolation, depression, anxiety. How are we going to pay the rent if you lost your employment? You have children. Now it's a family, all might be crammed up in one area. While before COVID, everyone was spread out doing their own thing. So it became difficult. So we came together as a board and wanted to figure out what's the best way to keep our peers moving forward. So we developed the support circle, as well as professional networks and a workforce knowledge that are helpful in building careers. Also, by establishing these strong supportive professional networks, we were able to make it a way for individuals to reach their career goals. PwC as well was able to anchor with the New York City Justice Peer Initiative by performing support circles, that will work for the entire peer support community, mental health, substance use disorder, justice-involved individuals, and so on, by providing a safe, brave, and supportive and confidential space. Is extremely important when you have these support circles, that in order to build a relationship, in order for the peers to get resources and whatever is needed, whatever they're going through, safe and confidentiality is stressed, is extremely important. What we say in the group has to stay in the group. Don't go out and start telling everyone's business, because that's not a way to build relationship and rapport. And once that breach is broken, it's hard to build that relationship once again. It's hard to be trusted again. So that I really stress confidentiality and a safe space. And PwC as well expanded the support circles to include justice peers. And next one, in which new positions were developed, and for example, the Justice Peer Liaison is new, quality assurance and so on. We decided that we wanted to have someone that's in, that feels comfortable what their passion is and what their expertise is, and to expand the executive board. Thank you. Also, like I stated before, we created the Professional Networking Support Circle within the New York City Justice Peer Initiative as one of the action groups. And with that, I'll welcome Skip to present about the Justice Peer. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Skip. Real name is Helen Skipper. Please don't call me Helen. My name is Skip. I just want to run through you virtually like real quick. What is the Justice Peer? I'm on executive leadership for the New York City Justice Peer Initiative, and I'm spearheading the part of the initiative that houses everything, which is the Justice Peer Center. So when we look at a Justice Peer, it's critical for a successful navigation of complex systems that include people with conviction histories and on behavioral health diagnosis. So basically, we're talking about the intersectionality of behavioral health and criminal justice. So while we know peer support workers are firmly integrated in the behavioral health systems, we also notice one important glaring factor. Peer support is underutilized in the justice system. Next slide, please. So we start to think about what is a justice peer. We know that it is definitely a person who uses their lived experience with the criminal legal system to support others who are ensnared in the system. We use the principles of shared understanding, respect, and mutual empowerment. And definitely lead by example, instilling hope and determination, and using the masterful power of storytelling. Next slide, please. So what is our goal and our value add? So first of all, we're going to establish a strong justice peer workforce in New York City. So we're going to build off the successes and lessons learned from the broader behavioral health peer worker movement. We're going to advocate for the peer workforce to become not just a critical component. If you've heard me speak before, you've already heard me speak about not begging for a seat at the table. I am the table. This is the table for successful criminal justice reform. And we're starting in New York, but this is applicable across all states. It's applicable upstate and Western New York. We're going to help New York City to reimagine our justice system and put the focus off of punitive and back to rehabilitation and recovery with peer support as the framework and central component. Next slide, please.
Thanks so much, Skip. And there's going to be more opportunity to talk
thank you.
this in the small group, but I just wanted to show really quickly what's coming. Is she's going to be talking about the goals for the initiative and more about a community meeting that started back then, and some of the outlines for that. So there's much more to go in this group, and please join the small group if you have any interest at all in the Justice Peer Initiative. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks so much, Skip. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Wonderful, wonderful job. And everybody, you will get these slides as part of your package. You know, I'm going to be emailing out both the chat and these slides and a little bit more. And within that packet, you'll have information on Helen's, sorry, I called you Helen. Oh, no. On Skip's.
Lightning is coming down.
She did a masterful keynote at Alternatives this year. Just amazing. So I'll send a link to that as well. So our next, we're moving now a little bit beyond the New York City examples, and actually beyond New York State even, with I'd like to introduce a dear friend, Lynn Miller, who's with Advocates for Human Potential, and she's going to talk a little bit about Wrap Behind the Walls. Lynn? Oh, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. I apologize for that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me, Rita. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the work that I've been sharing with Rita and some others within the New York Peer Justice Initiative. I previously came from the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, where I was brought in as the mental health advocate for all 26 state prisons. In that capacity, we had a certified peer specialist program we had, I'm going to say anywhere from 600 to 800 certified peers at any given time. I'm going to apologize up front if you hear some noise. I'm actually here from a hospital in Philadelphia, so I apologize for background noises of a hospital. Under that program of say 600 to 800 certified peer specialists, we had implemented RAP, and that came out of training that we were doing with the certified peers to help them increase their workforce ability, improve their opportunity to become employable in the community, but also to improve the services in the correctional system. So we have, Pennsylvania has about, I'm going to say between 46 to 50,000 incarcerated people. That is just in the state prison system. So we took the time to kind of figure out how we could systemically implement RAP facilitators in every facility. So we certified approximately 150 certified peer specialists. So we had individuals in every facility, somewhere between 6 to 8 facilitators who would be able to facilitate RAP at any given time. So we did cohorts of small groups. We did this regionally so we could accommodate it in a timely fashion and implemented the program throughout all 26 prisons. Some of you, if you attended the Alternatives Conference, you may have heard Lee and Dennis Horton speak with Mary Ellen Copeland, the developer and founder of the RAP program. They were previously incarcerated for about 3 decades for a crime they did not commit in Philadelphia, and have just recently, within the past 3 months, had their sentence commuted. I bring them up because they're 2 of the first facilitators that were certified as RAP facilitators, and actually are on their way next week to become certified as advanced level facilitators. And I want to speak a little bit about the project that they worked on, just to give you examples of how it was implemented. Our certified peers in Pennsylvania were implemented throughout every facet of the prison system. So segregation, or what we call restrictive housing, mental health units, intake units, any kind of treatment programs, just in general population. So peers were available on all 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. The RAP program was available one-on-one for individuals, but also through group facilitation. So when we had treatment programs or substance use programs, we implemented the peers, who are now facilitators, into every program throughout the system behind the walls. The program grew to the capacity where there were probably, I think Lee and Dennis said that they probably facilitated several hundred RAP groups within a 1.5-year period. And the reason that we certified internal folks was so that they could facilitate RAP on a consistent basis. And that's really what happened. They were facilitating RAP pretty much every day. I think they jokingly said on their way out the door with their bags the day that they were leaving, people were saying, "Can you just do one more RAP class?" So we really, to this day, that program is still going, even with COVID. AHP, as you may know, put out the RAP for isolation during the pandemic. So the peers on the units were only able to work on the units because they could not leave their units during the pandemic. But they were still facilitating RAP one-on-one. So Rita had asked me to share the work that we were doing in Pennsylvania, because it became recognized as, a model. There's a lot of folks that say you can't really do peer work in the correctional setting. And that's really just not true. You can. You have to have the kind of momentum behind it. You have to have the support behind it. But our peers were certified so that they could walk. They sat for the peer exam so that when they were returning to the street, they could literally walk out and get employment, apply for employment. The other thing that we found happening was, once the peers were certified and returned into the community, they were then able to get employment because they were RAP facilitators, because there became a big push to have more peers certified as RAP facilitators to gain employment. So that's just a little bit behind the scenes of how we were using the program. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take those questions. And
Yep, when we
I'll
get to
be-
the small groups, yep. Well,
Oh, yep, sorry, Rita.
Yep, that's the place for all of these questions.
Okay,
Questions
all
for
right.
any of our facilitators, please take them to
Okay.
the small groups or add them to the chat. And we'll-
Okay,
Thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you for especially joining us under under the current circumstances.
extreme circumstances. I appreciate you all bearing with me and the sounds you might be hearing in the background. Thank you.
And now what I'd like to do is to invite Martha to join us.
Hello, everybody. You can go to the next slide. I'm going to talk to you just briefly about the Wildflower Alliance that some of you may know as the Western Mass Recovery Learning Community. Earlier this year, we officially changed our name because we didn't feel Recovery Learning Community and Western Mass represented all we did. But this, in our mission statement, it's small here, so I'll read it. We support healing and empowerment for our broader communities and people who have been impacted by psychiatric diagnosis, trauma, extreme states, homelessness, problems with substances, and other life-interrupting challenges. And we do it through peer support, peer-to-peer support, alternative healing practices, learning opportunities, and advocacy. And I'll say like a little more about our community. We're people who come together based on shared experiences, but also very diverse experiences of either extreme emotional states, psychiatric diagnosis, surviving trauma, addictions or complications with drugs, prescribed and otherwise, discrimination based on psychiatric labels, race, gender, ability, size, and much more, and a desire to find healing and growth in any part of our lives. And we also include allies who have genuine interest in learning or adding to the community. And we approach this by offering trauma-sensitive peer-to-peer supports, fostering mutuality and connection building, creating opportunities for learning and sharing of ideas, advocating for change, both at an individual and systemic level, and developing regional and national networks. And although our primary funding when we began back in 2007 is by the Department of Mental Health in Massachusetts, we're definitely expand what we do and how we see what we do way beyond mental health, and also seek funding through community supports. I'm part of Alternatives to Suicide groups and training, and that's largely funded by harm reduction groups, not mental health groups. You can go to the next slide. So this kind of shows if we just were restricted to Western Mass, 4 counties in the western part of the state, but our reach is far beyond that now. And I'll just briefly describe the 4 groups, starting with individual and group peer-to-peer supports, which, we believe in trusting the inherent wisdom of each person and avoid giving advice or interpreting what someone else is going through unless they specifically ask. We seek healing and growth through relationships. We have 4 physical centers and also the Peer Run Respite, which AFIA, the Peer Run Respite, was recently mentioned in the World Health Organization guidance that came out on community health as a good practice for community crisis mental health services. We also have the Discord social platform that we use to host online peer support and community space, community bridging at local hospitals and jails, and housing supports that include peer support, tenancy preservation supports, and the first step, like in application processes. And we provide full-time peer support in an apartment living community called Rainville. When we talk about alternative healing practices, we don't advocate that yoga is great for everyone or everyone should do Reiki. But what we found is people only have choice about what they have access to. And so often access is limited by funds. Some of the alternative practices people have to pay for. So we try to bring those into our centers so people can experience yoga, can experience Reiki, can experience acupuncture, and other things. And then it's up to them if this is something that is helpful to me and will help them get connected to that. But we don't want lack of access to be a barrier to finding out what's most helpful to someone. We offer a lot of learning opportunities and training. The most common ones are the Hearing Voices Network. We do facilitator training for that and host several groups, some in person, some online. We've expanded that to a online group for family members of people who have extreme experiences, and so they can connect that way. We do, as I mentioned earlier, I'm part of Alternatives to Suicide, which we do in person and online, and offer trainings both for people to become facilitators and also for anyone in general who wants to learn about the approach. We do anti-oppression training, trauma-sensitive approach training. We're connected with intentional peer support and offer intentional peer support training here in Massachusetts. And the last part is advocacy. And in this, we sort of have an intentional community within Wildflower Alliance that's called the Wild Ivy Social Justice Network. And that seeks to increase voice, choice, access, personal and collective power for those experiencing life-interrupting emotional distress and other challenges, and who face barriers due to marginalization. We do systems advocacy, such as training, actually going out and protesting, and a lot of writing. Our most recent thing, Massachusetts is one state that hasn't completely adopted outpatient commitment, or they don't call it outpatient commitment, assisted outpatient treatment. We recently had many people speak to the Massachusetts legislature about the harms of force in treatment, and they aren't moving forward on that at this time. Some other things are personal advocacy, individual advocacy, and that will look different for what someone wants. Sometimes it's attending an appointment with someone or a meeting with someone so they don't feel like they're ganged up on by a whole group of people and it's just them. We also do a lot of education of people about their rights and their options. We might make phone calls together or fill out paperwork together. So just briefly, it's a resource, and part of the reason of us changing to Wildflower Alliance is it's not just limited to Western Massachusetts. And I'm happy to be a part of that. And I've never lived in the Western part of the state. I'm very much in the Eastern part of the state. So thank you.
So thank you so much, Martha. That was great. And what I love about Wildflower is that, you know, often what's thought of as a weed is the most resilient. It's a lot like us, I think. So, okay, so we're going to move on now to talk a little bit about some of the common ground that these communities have in common. Many of them start with a dream or a vision, a shared mission or purpose, a dedicated core group, and coordination. And what I found with all of the most successful communities of practice and communities that form is that these four things are essential. So that's something to be thinking about as you look at joining a community or starting a community. And we're going to go into the small groups now.
Getting ready to say you're sending that to your email.
We're going to join the small groups, and I want to see who's unmuting themselves. Thank you. Thank you for muting yourself. We're going to go into the small groups now. And what I encourage you to do is to choose a group to join. I'm going to put up the four choices. It's going to be Dan and the Peer Workers United. It's going to be Jeanette and Skip and Tishna for the Workforce Coalition. It's going to be Lynn with the Wrap Behind the Walls, and it's going to be Martha with the Wildflower Alliance. Those are the four groups. So choose a group to join and learn more about the group in your small group. Share your own ideas about something that might be valuable to the group and something that might be valuable to others who are joining the group to know about. Capture ideas in a chat. So I'm going to ask our group of 8 to go in and be facilitators of that process of capturing ideas in the chat. Also, those of you who are among our group of 8, please make sure that you record the session. Just hit record to your computer. We may not put the recording into the larger video. I'll ask at the end if anybody has an issue with doing that, and we won't if anybody doesn't want to. But we do want to preserve what was said in the group for us to be able to share just what was said and not who said it later on. and then return to the large group to share. So right now, the time is 11:17. I have scheduled for our small groups to end at 11:30. Let's give it just a few more minutes. 11:35, we'll come back from the small groups. I'm going to open, I think I'm going to open the breakout groups now. Okay, so you should be seeing an invitation to come to one of the breakout groups. New York City 1 is Dan and the Peer Workers United. New York City 2 is the Peer Workforce Coalition, and that is Jeanette, Skip, and Tishna. RAP is with Lynn Miller, and Wildflower Alliance is with Martha. You should. So we're actually back in the large breakout session, or in the large group right now. So hopefully everybody is on their way back if they're not back already. Let me check in with you folks that are back. So I'm gonna actually stop sharing my screen for just a second and see who's here. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And now we're recording again. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So how about a quick report out from what happened in the small groups? Let's start with the reverse order with the Wildflower Alliance. If you're ready, Martha, and whoever was supporting Martha in that room, just to give a quick 3-minute talk about what was talked about in the group.
I just popped up the notes just so we can have a quick look at what we talked about. Martha, I'll let you, and I think, Rita, we can probably send this out, but this was basically what was asked. I was essentially transcribing some of the 3 questions that were brought up.
Yeah, most of our discussion, the questions were about alternatives to suicide approach and training. And the best way to find out about any of the upcoming trainings is to sign up for the newsletter, because that's how they're announced initially, and it's usually several months in advance. So I put that link in the chat, and I also put the link just to the page on our website that lists trainings. Our trainings right now are going on in person and online, and that will probably continue now that we've finally figured out how to do it online. It's a different experience in person than online, but it's still eligible. And we try to keep costs down to a minimum, so cost for training isn't prohibitive. We try to encourage organizations to pay for people to attend instead of individuals having to pay. Massachusetts residents get to come for free. But if someone out of state is going to travel here for one of ours, we try to waive fees as best we can and get funding other sources. As far as peer-to-peer support, anyone can attend our online groups. There's a calendar that shows all the online groups currently going on. There's a calendar that shows it, and if you scroll beyond the calendar, it lists them all. Like, it lists all the alternatives to suicide groups. We have 4 or 5 a week now. There's also some in other states, and right now we don't have that on our website, but we hope to have a website that people can find a group. We don't have that right now, though.
Excuse me, can you scroll down and show the links again to the newsletter?
You want me the link for the newsletter?
There we go. I see it.
You got it?
Yeah, thank you.
And I just said, I just reiterated, we expanded way beyond our original developed, more in as a mental health peer support, but now it's more marginalized groups, anyone that's been in distress that was life interrupting and needs support. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Martha. Okay, let's move back up to Lynn Miller and RAP Inside the Walls. Did you have questions that came up or things that you wanted to share with the larger group that were discussed in that group?
I did. Rashawn asked a great question on how do I even get this started, right? Something like this. And I think it's a 2-part question, which I had indicated to everybody, which would be, we're really talking about two programs. One was sort of embedded into the other. The peer program is one. The other one is the RAP program. From my perspective, working inside and being an administrator, I would say that it's an easier sell to get RAP started because the peer program is a certification. There's training that needs to happen behind the scenes. You have to get a lot more buy-in and support from administrators, right? Because when you implement the program correctly, you want to make sure that you're not just training individuals as peer mentors, which is a popular program in probably every state prison, but it is not a certification program. It's not a workforce development program. It's simply a mentor program. It's a valuable program, but it is very different. Just because you're a peer mentor doesn't mean you can be a peer certified peer specialist. So from a perspective to get started, I think a great introduction would be introducing RAP, showing how RAP can work, and then sort of selling that, if you will, to administrators, wardens, superintendents, then possibly introducing a peer program. So particularly if you're talking about county facilities, county jails typically have shorter term stays. So it can be hard to go through the process of certifying peers in county jails. It's a costly process as well. So a lot of folks aren't jumping up and down about, incurring that. We happen to have a really progressive secretary in the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections when we implemented the peer program. So you have to have very high level support for a program of that nature. But where I think kind of from a grassroots level, you can have facilitators that are RAP facilitators from the community, because most times the county jails, even state prisons, they welcome community partners to come in. There's a lot of programs that require linkages with community partners. RAP's a real simple way. It's an evidence-based program. It's a simple way to introduce a kind of wellness program into the system and let the administrators kind of see for themselves the results of it, then possibly talk about introducing the peer program. So that was a really kind of 2-cent version of an answer to Rashawn's question. I think he put something in the chat about being able to talk for an hour at least, right, Rashawn?
Oh yeah, well, and this isn't the end of this, because what I'm really doing is sort of gathering the initial contacts and giving you opportunities to be able to reach out to each other beyond this session. This is just kind of planting the seeds. So with that, I'd like to go with Jeanette. Jeanette and Skip and Tishna, what was going on in your group?
What we did was we just spoke a little bit about currently. We went more into detail about currently what PwC is doing. Also that it's the anchor organization to the New York City Justice Peer Initiative. And then I handed it over to Skip, where she spoke about the New York City Justice Peer Initiative and how the 3 different action groups are going to be utilized in the New York City Justice Peer Center. So if anyone's interested in any of that, New York City Justice Peer Center, as well as PwC, Skip put her email on the chat. I put my email in the chat. Tish as well could put her email in the chat, and whoever's interested and want to contact us directly can. Thank you.
Great. Skip is, I think, otherwise occupied. So let's go on to Dan and Philip.
Hi, yeah, the most important thing that happened in our breakout session is the introduction of Philip Williams Cook.
No, not exactly. Dan did go over the little 5-minute presentation he had earlier for folks who didn't get to see it. So that also happened. So one thing that was brought up that I thought was interesting is someone mentioned that it was hard for, she found it difficult to get peers together, where she lives, which is a topic that's come up a lot during the Peer Workers United meeting.
Right, Rochester was suggested that there's not a lot of peer support happening there. And so we gave suggestions about, really utilizing social media to attract the peers and the peer workers and those interested in peer work to like a central place on the internets. And also just by word of mouth, is telling people, hey, I have this site, blah, blah, blah. Let that spread around and let people come to the hub and then learn more about peer support work and how to get certified. If that is because it's a challenging and extreme and at times extremely difficult emotionally job to have. And, my feeling is if a peer loves to cook, and has some skills and whether to pursue chef or to pursue peer work, I would say go for the chef. That's it, because if you love to do that, and that you won't have to worry about some heavy stuff that is extreme, because and the thing is, peer specialists aren't getting paid the equivalent of the emotional challenge of the job, and that's a big problem. And so with the low pay, the emotional challenges, become a chef if you love cooking.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And again, if you have any other questions, we've got about 5 to 10 minutes left. If you have other questions to put in the chat, I'll share that with our presenters and with the others that have been participating in this group. I'd love to start an online dialogue at some point. We may do another session similar to this for more opportunities, because I can think of about a dozen different groups that should have been here giving presentations, and maybe we do like a featured group every other week or something as part of our Academy offerings, or other groups could pick up that idea. But I'm going to go ahead and sort of wrap us up now. So everybody shared a few key points from the breakout, and we had we didn't actually ask for a volunteer to capture the ideas in the main chat, but we have recorded it. Just as a closing, think of a word or a phrase. What does the idea of this whole topic idea that we had of finding synergy and community mean to you? So just a word or phrase about what that means to you. And I want to say thank you all for coming to today's first opening day of the 15th annual New York City Conference for Working Peer Specialists. I especially want to thank the conference committee. They do a lot of hard work behind the scenes, and they just really do a great job for 15 years. They've done an amazing job. It was great to see Amanda and Celia and Carlton and, just everybody kicking us off at the very beginning. I did want to mention that you will want to watch for in your email, there will be an evaluation in addition to the information I'm sending. You want to fill out that evaluation, and when you do, don't close it before you actually do a screen capture or otherwise save and print the certificate, because that's how you'll be able to apply for your continuing education. It's not something we drop into the chat anymore. It's something that will come to you because you've registered for the session. So watch for that. These are the references that I used in the development of the session. Here's contact information. So for now, until I get that chat turned around for you with all of the contact information for everybody else, you can always reach me at the academy.virtual.community@gmail.com. That's our virtual community email. And again, watch for an email with the evaluation for this morning's workshop.